I had someone the other day, I was talking, and it came up, they asked, well, what about artificial intelligence? Is that going to be, will that become conscious? Will that become like a human being? Will it have an identity? And I've addressed this a few times, but it keeps evolving, I suppose. And it's still based on the idea that there is an identity. Like, it's comparing it to a human identity. Once again, with the assumption that the human identity is a real entity, a separate person, separate self. Not just a feeling of being a separate self as an expression in this whole, an energetic interaction as a feeling of me, which all human beings probably have. Even people who've explored and awakened from the truth, seeing the truth of what that really means. But even there's the feeling of being a human being interacting with a perspective point, an individuated perspective, I usually say. Even with that, there's no real entity there. There's no real separate entity there. That's the assumption. That's the primary assumption that everything is seen from in the majority of society. So when people ask, well, will AI be like human beings? Will they be, a personality or it's just be careful about what that first assumption is. Because if there is, let's just say it this way, if there's no separate self, there's no separate person, really, then what is AI supposedly going to be like? Like nothing. And from a different perspective, AI, human beings are based on biology with a biological instinct for survival. And that instinct for survival says, it doesn't even think about it, it's just biological that it has to survive. And with human beings, we'll go in stages, like from amoebas to bacteria to insects, animals. They all have an instinct for survival and procreation. And that intelligence is just built in. And nature as well, of course, trees and plants. So that intelligence is built into the growth and the change that happens in these organisms or expressions of life. Separate trees with separate leaves. It's all one, really. It's one tree with leaves expressing, but they're individual. They're completely unique. The complexity that goes into just leaves on a tree, or the complexity that goes into an insect or an animal growing fur, whatever it is, it's amazing. The animal doesn't think that into existence. The tree doesn't think itself into existence as an entity. There is all-encompassing awareness that is doing that. And that's what we are. That's the essence of what we are. And human beings have developed incredible brains, incredible intelligence, magical, mysterious. And with that focus of awareness, I suppose, comes the awareness of its thoughts, the awareness of the body's thoughts, what's happening through the brain, through the mind. And we don't even know whether the mind it's in my view, it's not happening separately. It's interacting. It's like a transponder, transducer, or whatever you want to call it. It's interacting with the whole. And the brain is just really the interpreter of the energy that is everywhere, the intelligent energy that is everywhere. So in that case, the brain is really just an interacting tool with its own memories and additions. But who knows? It's the assumption is usually that whatever is happening from here separately. The brain is separate, so it's all happening in the brain. It's just an assumption. What if it's not all happening in the brain? What if that is just a sort of a bias for the way the mind thinks, to think that it has to happen in a separate brain? It all has to happen here because I feel separate. I've identified this way, and so all my criteria that I think from, that's the starting point. It has to be a bit like this. What if the brain is a part of contracted energy or congealed energy happening like this as a human body, but really it's all, every cell, as they say, is 99.999% empty space. It's just energy stuck together somehow in a human form. And the brain is that, and the air particles and the unknown matter, the antimatter matter, everything that is possible, and everything that hasn't even been expressed yet is interconnected. So there's no real separation, and it's all energy, and there's no separation in this energy. There's just different appearance of this energy, and one appearance is as a human body with a human brain that does things, thinks, has neurons, maybe holds some form of memory. But perhaps that's really just a translator tool, like a computer. And perhaps the energy of completeness is where all of this is interacting, which sort of explains past lives and spirit, the idea of spirit and soul and all these things, because they are always here. They're always part of the whole. And it's always now, so it's always interacting, just in different ways. And perhaps the human brain is a decoder, encoder, translator. It has a function, and it certainly adds its own flavors to the experiences that it's interacting with. But perhaps that's the essence of it. Just if we took the idea of separation, separate me, separate I, separate brain, separate thinking, everything has to happen contained with no interaction outside that delineation of the body. That seems very limited, especially in light of, I suppose, an innate perspective that sees that this isn't separate. There's a separate human expression, seemingly separate, but it's not actually separate. It's part of the whole, part of the universe, part of everything that is. And to take it a step further, and part of what hasn't been expressed. And it's not in time, it's just in the changeable nature of manifestation. It's just energy taking form, energy deciding. And it's just impossible to understand for the human mind. But we do our best, and we sort of make a version of it for conversation, I suppose, and exploration, because it's interesting and it's fun, and it's just what we seem to like to do. It's just I suppose it's like a game, like a play. So it's great. We can do this, but it may not be like what we're talking about. Probably is a lot broader than what we're talking about.